Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome back to some more Frozen Fortress for Zombicide White Death. This is the Kickstarter stretch goal box. So this is the first video. The first three we went over all of the survivors and we broke them up into kind of like homage characters, real people, or like anamorphic characters and animal people. Then we did one set, it was just Chinese historical characters, and then the third video was Japanese and then other Asian cultures like India and Hindu, Malay, Philippines, a couple other smaller ones. So now we're hopping into all these zombies. I'm just going to do all of these, even though I kind of broke these down up a little bit as well. Into like different cultures. I'm going to do them all in one video because they're not going to take nearly as long to do for each one. So what is really cool about this, obviously we get a ton of new necromancers, we get a bunch of new abominations, which are going to work basically the same way, summoning the same way as they would in the core set. You're going to go through, with the new 2.0 rules, you're going to go through until you draw the abomination card. Then you're going to grab your stack of abomination cards. And you're going to pick whichever one you want, draw randomly, so you can set your deck up ahead of time if there's only certain guys you want to fight, or if you have a ton of them, you can mix and match and add them all into the one stack. And the same thing for the necromancers. They'll work the exact same way. The other thing that's going to be different here is we have what are called the daily spawns. So what they like to do in these Kickstarter campaigns is give us a couple extra walkers, maybe a brute and a runner or two, not as many of them. But what they do is they also give them extra special abilities. So the question is, how do we summon those guys, or how do we use them? So I'm going to kind of go over my thought process on that. I am missing something. One of my guys I'm missing a card for. I'll figure that out when I get there. We're going to talk about that. So just before I get into that quick, the four things that are in here is a couple of things we're going to have in here is we will have, again, brand new abominations, brand new necromancers. Then we're also going to have all the daily, which each have their own card, and then we'll have our daily walkers spawn that. We're also getting a collection of the abominations from other Kickstarter or expansion packs, as well as the necromancers from the previous Black Plague and Green Horde sets. So we'll look at those before we get into the rest of the abominations and all that stuff. So that's really cool. So if you bought the retail box, the Court without White Death, you got the updated necromancer cards for the retail stuff. This will get you all the updated stuff for all the Kickstarter stuff. So if you own them, you can also use them. Now, what if you don't own any of those characters? You don't own the boxes? You can always substitute that for any other character. You can always just keep using like the Khan abomination because it's kind of generic looking, and just have them be like, oh, have your character pop up and be like they're acting as this character. So you could definitely do that as well. Alright, so before we hop into that, I want to explain a couple of things I think, this is me personally, these are not any official rules, on how you can spawn the daily spawns. So, in the book here, just as an example, they're going to have all the daily spawns. So we have like the Baki Ganuki, which is a raccoon warrior. Whoops. I dropped the card that I needed. Come on. Alright. So he's going to have a special ability. It says, at the beginning of the player's roll phase die until the end of the round, Baki is considered an abomination, a runner, a brute, or a walker. So he can become different things, which is very interesting. So, but what it does is, how you have to spawn them, he's going to spawn as a walker. So I believe there's kind of 4 different ways you can spawn these guys. One, you can just use them all as alternate sculpts for the previous zombies. So if I want to, I can just take, like, for example, here I got 2 different walkers and a runner. I can just grab these as different walkers, this is different a runner, just to have something different on the board, versus the soldiers. And you don't have to do any other steps. They're going to be treated just like standard walkers. They're not going to do anything special. You're going to ignore all the stuff in here. That's probably just one way to do it for people that don't care. The second way to do it would, if you want to get one of these guys specifically, is if you just have all your walkers, all your runners, all your brutes, all that stuff just mixed in one box. And when it says spawn 8 walkers, you get a card that says spawn 8 walkers. You just reach in that pile and you grab out 8 walker miniatures. So you're going to get any of the 3 different sculpts or 5 different sculpture in the base game. Or if you have it mixed with other expansions that have other different styles and that's cool too. And then let's say you happen to grab this guy out. Okay, now that you grabbed him as one of the 8, so he's your one of your guys, now you specifically find the rule book and apply his rules. You can always do that. It's a possibility. Just, again, there's not that many over all of these guys. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 4 or 5 walkers in here. Like 1 runner and like 3 brutes. So you're not going to be drawing them very often just randomly like that. Although that could be kind of a beneficial thing as well. The third way to do it is treat them like the Warden brutes. So if we look at this card here from Eternal Empire set, so we got the new type of brutes, which are the Warden brutes. So this is every time you spawn a brute card. Didn't matter if it was the easier amount, which is a 6/8, or the harder one, which is I think 6/8/4/4, or the easier one, which was I think 6/4/2 and 2. Anyone always adding a Warden brute. And this is the only way to get Warden brutes out. Every time you summon one, you get an additional one. Which then they have their own special ability, but they don't have a specific card that sits out there and tells them how they work. They might have a key card. You can do the same thing with that. So every time I spawn walkers, I could grab one of these special walkers. Oh, now this guy spawns with them. I could grab a different one. And yeah, again, you only have 5 or 6 of them, so you're not going to be... you're going to run out of them fairly quickly, so you can do every other spawn, or you can do every spawn and start with them, or maybe wait. They don't spawn until we hit blue level or something, or, hit like orange level. Then that way, at least you're not getting these extra abilities too quickly. So that's another way to do it. I think that's probably the best way to do it, to have each character come out, without having to, like, randomly just get them. The other option would be to use a different spawn card in place of them. So, like, just as an example, you could grab, like, if you have one of the other sets, if you have, like, Swarm of Rats or Zombie Wolves, you could grab one of these, which all have the exact same, one of the older sets, which have all the exact same types of characters on there, and you could grab one of these, and they have different emotes on them, like these two happen to be the exact same numbers. So you could spawn it like this every time Wolves comes up, or if you had Swarm of Rats, if you're not using those miniatures in the campaign, you could use this as just an idea for that. So if I pull Wolf Invasion, I instead spawn 5 of them special guys, or 4, and then maybe even if you want to have a couple of wolves or a couple of rats, a couple of other spectral walkers or different things, you can even kind of combine them all into one thing. Just be like, I grab any of these things instead. But that's always a possibility to get, or use like one of these. The only downside of that is, again, there's only a handful of these guys, so you're not going to be able to spawn a ton of them. Just as an example, I grabbed like spectral walkers here. So like this one's gonna have a 6. You're never gonna have 6 unless you only have one of these cards in your deck, right? And they're like, I happen to be on orange, I have to deal with 1. And you can always do it that way too. It's just at one point you're gonna spawn a bunch of these guys all in one zone. So it's got some different numbers here. You go like this, so like keep this one. If you get up to red and you happen to draw it, by the time you're in red, you'll get all of them coming out. But if you draw it early, you only get 1 or 2 that might appear in the game. And you could do something like that instead. Just even have one of those cards in the deck, and if it just happens to come up, all of a sudden you have to deal with them. The only downside I see to that is then you're going to have, like, generic group, generic runners, generic brute, or whatever else. And you're going to have, like, all these guys with special rules in one area, which might, depending on what they do, they're not like, super crazy. But if you have all of them spawn at the same time, that's also, you spawn 5. It's 5 brand new rules you have to remember all at the exact same time, all in that one area. Whereas if you spawn them with 1 per each card, then at least you have the idea of you have the idea of them just being like, my brain's not working here. Like one's in this zone, one's in that zone, one's in that zone. So you might have a better idea of maybe spread across the board a little bit more. So another couple options for that would be, or you can always just spawn, have one of these cards in here. And here's just another potential option for that, is just put one of these in here so you have a different card on the table versus your regular spawn cards. And then every time one comes, you just spawn one of these guys, regardless of what this says. I always spawn one and then draw another spawn card. So if I got Spectral Walkers popped up, regardless of whatever, I'd special summon one of those daily zombies. Then I could draw another card and do my regular spawn in that zone. And that'd just be a way so you know that it's always going to be there. But that's essentially the same thing as me saying, every time you spawn a card, just add one to the group. It'd be the exact same thing, just you'd have a card as a reminder. Another possibility is they do have the Notoriously Plagued Characters box set, which are like alternate miniatures that didn't in themselves have any special rules. And they had 2 different boxes for these. But yeah, they didn't have any special rules. They're alternate sculpt figures, but then they had a special rule that if you defeated so many, you got a vault item. But you could use this as well as just combine them with the rest of those characters. And then this, you'd have like, you could still use your walkers, your wolves, your rats, all that stuff without having an issue. And they have a couple of different numbers in there. And you could just, again, then mix maybe these alternate sculpts with these daily walker alternate sculpts, and then randomly grab from them that pile. And then if you grab one of those, you grab one of the daily ones. Oh, I got 1 or 2 of them. You only have 1 or 2 abilities to work with. So that's another possibility. A third one for just using a different card is the Terrorcotta Walkers from the expansion. And the only reason I bring this one up is because they're always 5. So you'd never spawn more than 5 at any type. And you could even, if you want to, even just take all the daily things. So you might grab a Brute, you might grab a Walker, you might grab the Runner, and you can just have any of them spawn at this level. That's always a possibility, because they're always going to be 5 instead of these other ones that have different numbers. Or we have something like the Divine Beast, which is going to just summon the Divine Beast. You could use this again. It's just a card to be like, if I draw this, I'm not summoning Divine Beasts. Instead, I am summoning one of these daily guys. It's just a card to stand out from the rest. It's just another thing I wanted to just kind of point out there. So if you tried to use the original spawn cards and toss them in there, you could potentially do that as well. But again, the thing is, there's 3 Brutes and there's 2 Brutes. So like using one of these ones that has smaller numbers, you might be able to, but again, it could just be a one-off card. Throw one of these in the deck, and if I happen to be on orange, I'll spawn the 2 Brutes that'll fight. I might spawn all 5 Walkers. There's no special abomination, but you could even do is randomly just select one of the other abominations. That might just be worth the risk. Or they have one that doesn't even have an abomination on there. And that could, or have like 1 or 2 of these. You could cherry pick through your set and find ones that have the different numbers that might work for what you want. Again, if you have other Kickstarter stretch goal stuff, you might have other zombies, you could mix them with special things as well. Awesome. So very cool. Alright then, so before we head into the brand new stuff, let's just take a quick look at all the old ones from the old Kickstarters, the different guys you'll get. So we have the Abominable Bunny. Now, some of these are from the Black Horde, the Black Plague Kickstarter stretch goal box. Some are from the Green Horde stretch goal. Some are from the guest boxes, because most of them had survivors, but a few of them had necromancers in there. It could be from anything that was a Kickstarter exclusive thing. So we have the Abominable Bunny. It says, targets all survivors in its zone upon attacking. Kills every survivor on targets. Can only be killed with dragon fire. So this guy's very deadly. Monty Python reference, of course. We have the Obama Alpha, who has 3 actions. When runners of any type are spawn the same amount of zombie wolves instead. So if you have the zombie wolves, that can be very cool. The Abominable Rat spawns 1 zone away from the noisiest zone of the board, with an opening passage linking both zones. If several zones are eligible and no open passage available, player chooses. So Bailiff here, these are actually Massive Darkness 2 crossovers. So they have some of these guys in here because that was a Kickstarter exclusive extra. So upon activation, choose your closest survivor in line of sight. That survivor performs up to 1 move and combat action to attack another survivor if possible. Also from Massive Darkness, Banshee. After activation, all survivors in range 0 to 1 get a special noise token. At the end of the Banshee's next activation, all survivors of such noise tokens are killed. Remove these noise tokens if the Banshee is killed. Massive Darkness, Cerberus. Move up to 2 zones per activation. After its activation, all survivors in its zone receive 1 wound. Chromatus. Actions and damage varies. 3 actions per activation if 2 females are in line of sight. Wounds inflicted are 3 if 2 males are in line of sight. Familiars don't count. So yeah, if it can see females, it gets extra action. If it see males, it does extra wounds. If it sees both, it's going to be pretty deadly. The Feral Dragon. Wounds inflicted are 2, no armor rolls. Minimum damage to wound, 2 damage. Seeing the vulnerability rules. Experience provides 1 point per vulnerability. Check the rules. So now this is one of the few ones that you wouldn't just be able to replace with another character. Actually has special cards that make it vulnerable to special attacks. So like at certain times it can only be damaged with siege weapons or vault weapons. So this would be one of the few guys you couldn't just be like, oh, I'm going to use this abomination for its abilities, but use a different miniature. We have the Gorgon Abomination. Spawns in the noises zone. If a building zone is not, if not, it spawns in the nearest building zone. Nor walls and closed doors to set its route, goes through them to move. The Horde Brother. Horde, green Horde only, just because it uses the Horde cards. Inflicts 3 wounds upon spawning another abomination miniature in the Horde. If not possible, gains an extra activation. So it's only going to work if you're using the Horde mechanics. The Horseman from Massive Darkness. Now, there are the 4 Horsemen, but they have 1 card that just represents any of the 4. Inflicts 2 wounds. As long as a Horseman is in play, survivors cannot perform enchantment and magic actions. Very interesting. They would have been kind of neat if they had 1 for each of them. We have Hugbear from Massive Darkness. Moves 3 actions to leave Hugbear's zone. He holds on to you. The Magenta Kofafi of Arg. Spend 1 more action to perform a move action while at the range of Kofafi and having line of sight on it. Queen Tandera from Massive Darkness. Attacks against the Queen range from 0 to 1. Roll 2 less dice. A Siege Breaker. Move towards the closest siege engine whenever possible. Any siege engine in its zone is destroyed. So this one you could use with any version of the game. You do need one of the siege engines. So it wouldn't work with White Death because there aren't any. Just by itself, I mean. Swamp Lurker. Cannot be targeted or attacked and killed while in a waterhole zone. So again, this is Green Horde only just because you need the waterhole tiles. Swamp Troll. Is also a Green Horde only. Inflicts wounds inflicted to spawns in the noiseless waterhole. If the noiseless zone is not a waterhole, spawns the closest waterhole. No waterhole spawns in the spawn zone. Noiseless zone. We have the Reaper from Massive Darkness. 2 actions. Wounds inflicted 2. At the end of each of the Reaper's activations, each survivor at range 1, then line of sight receives a wound. The Vault Warden. Upon spawning, make a deck with all vault weapons you may possess and not used in that quest. Survivor killing a Vault Warden gets a random vault weapon from this deck. Which kind of like the whole new rules of the vault weapons are they drop one anytime you defeat one anyhow. So this is just a way of getting an additional one from specifically him. Were Zombie. When killed, replace with another abomination of your chosen. If none is available, all abominations on the board get an extra activation. The Zombie Giant, 2 actions. Attacks all survivors in its zone at 0 to 1. Armor rolls are allowed though. Line of sight can be traced over buildings and hedges because he's so tall. Throws a zombie from the start of each zombie phase. Check rules for specifics. And then the last one was from the Thundercats crossover set, which is Mum-Ra. Actions 2 and wounds inflicted 2. Range attack is 0 to 1. When defeated, spawn Mum-Ra Necromancer on the closest spawn zone. If the Sword of Omens is in play, Mum-Ra moves towards it. So very cool. And then we have some Necromancers that crossed over from the old games. We have Count Tremere. If Tremere escapes, each survivor must discard an equipment card if available. Optional, discard an equipment from each survivor during the end phase. Deal 1 damage to Count Tremere. So it isn't like equipment. Eric Summoner. His Necromancer spawn zone moves along with his miniature. If he escapes, the spawn zone stays. Evil Troy. Army of Darkness reference. When killed, put him back in his spawn zone. Don't remove a spawn token unless 3 or more damage was used or Dragonfire attack was used. Grin. 2 zones per move, so very simple for a Necromancer. Queen Medea. Cannot be eliminated if there are other zombies in her zone. Effects eliminate all zombies, eliminate her as normal. Queen Severa. Attacks at range 0 to 3. The Rat King. Spawns with a swarm of rats at 1, 2, 4, or 6 according to the danger level. Each time it gets an extra activation, add 1 swarm of rats to the zone. Then all swarms of rats get an extra activation. And then, Thundercats, we have the other Mum-Ra. Whenever you draw a Necromancer card and Mum-Ra Necromancer's on the board, replace him with the Abomination instead. So they just keep kind of switching back and forth. Just very Thundercats of them. Cool. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at some of the daily spawns, and we'll get into the Abominations since we have to go through their cards here. So we're going to look at some of the Japanese ones. So we already looked at the Baku Genuki. So that says the beginning of the player's roll phase. Until the end of the round, he is considered an Abomination, so very rare. A runner or a brute, very high. Two, I guess, and then or a walker. So very interesting. He can kind of flip around to be different. There's this bigger picture of him. Yeah, he can become different things. That's pretty interesting. I'm gonna move this down for a sec. So there's his miniature. So it says these shapeshifters will take in human forms and gain in human vices. So very interesting. Got a little bit of lore with them. The next one up we're going to flip to the next page, we have the Kappa, which is the turtle there. Semi-intelligent, semi-tribal species. Last in target priority. Kappa's attacks deal 3 wounds at the beginning of the Abomination phase. Survivor in Kappa's zone may discard an apple or a salted meat card. If they do, does not activate during the enemy phase. Interesting. So it's got attack last in priority, but it does 3 damage. So yeah, it's very interesting. You have a walker that can do a ton of damage. This is why the abilities are, why these guys would be kind of dangerous if you spawn too many of these at once. Especially if you could potentially accidentally spawn them like at the beginning of the game. This guy's a little bald spot down the top too. But yeah, definitely cool. Alright, so for the other one for Japan, let's jump to that quick, is we have the Onryo, which is that guy right there. And we'll have a full picture of him. So he says, always target survivor at the most AP. So he's a runner. So we have 1 runner in the game. It's really like a sword-wielding demon. But yeah, he's always going to go after the highest priority target. Whoever has the most. So it makes him a little bit interesting for the runner mechanic. Just because of that reason. Alright, so then up next we have our 2 brutes, who both are hailing from China. So we have Meng Hu. So this is a very terrifying looking beast monster. Who's going to have the ability. It says when Meng Hu would be eliminated, place him in the first spawn zone instead. So yeah, these aren't like super powerful abilities or not like game breaking things, but they're very interesting to do. Like, having a zombie that respawns or gets extra damage, is very cool. He's dragging things with, like, weird tentacles popping out. Very scary. But yeah, you can always even somehow... The only thing I wish they would have done was made just extra little cards for these abilities. That would have been kind of neat. Or if they had some way of doing it so that you would have had some way of, like, just attaching these. So you could have, like, oh, like, the runners come out. Now runners during this thing or this zone have something. That would have been kind of interesting. Anyway, we have Zombicide. So he's still remember the Celestial Pantheon. So interesting. So to not perform move actions at the beginning of each zombie phase, all other zombies in the zone gain 1 extra activation. So this guy just stands around giving all other zombies in his zone. So basically they're going to spawn, and then they're going to keep getting extra activations every turn. So that's crazy, right? So every time they spawn, here's a little rake and stuff. Yeah, so that's like a crazy, again, is it great game breaking? No, but when you're giving every zombie, as soon as they spawn, an additional activation, immediately after they spawn, that's pretty crazy. And then the thing is, if you're playing with, other necromancers, and that corruption, and the corruption zones moving, when you're playing the corruption, right, and the corruption's moving the zones along the board. So if we find that picture of that really quick. So yeah, so when your corruption's moving, it moves that spawn zone across the board. He can also start spawning in the middle of the table instead of just on the outside. So that could definitely make it even more tricky. All of a sudden he's spawning like right in the middle, and all of a sudden like a runner or an abomination spawn, right? That could be pretty deadly. Awesome. So those are 2 there. So our next 2 we have up are from Hindu or Hindi things. We have Rakasha. Hope I'm not butchering that too terrible. So we have this deadly guy here who's going to have last on target priority. When Rakasha attacks, all survivors in the zone suffer 2 wounds. So he's going to be the last guy you can take out, with the exception if there's a necromancer in there. You can argue who gets to go first. But yeah, then he does 2 damage. So basically, yeah, you don't take out everybody, he's going to hurt you. So that was his. And that he's a walker, by the way. And then our last daily walker and daily spawn is going to be the Yaksha. He's got this spiny helmet. Usually benign and beam, but they occasionally play tranks. Yaksha attack deal 3 wounds. When he's eliminated, survivor eliminated receives a vault weapon. So interesting. So it's kind of neat. Like, you have the Kappa, which does 3 wounds, and then this guy also does 3 wounds. But the differences are is the Kappa is last in priority, so he's going to be harder to kill, and then this guy hands it a weapon. But you could ignore the Kappa for a turn, where this guy you're going to have to deal with either way. So very cool. So those are, there was like, 1, 2, 3, 4 walkers, 2 brutes, and a runner. So there's not a lot. So I was talking about all the different ways to spawn them. Again, I think the best way, unless you have a bunch of other ones, or you're going to, like, mix and match with other sets and stuff, is just to probably be like, add one of them to, like, any spawn. Maybe start them at, like, orange level. But yeah, it's definitely what you can do for those. Alright, then we are going to hop into, so we have the rest of the stuff in the book here for the rest of these characters, but they all have cards, so I'm not going to worry about them. But we're going to go over the rest of these guys. So we're going to start with, let me move my camera back down a little bit here. We're going to start the one that's not really based on any specific culture, but it's the Death Notes, which was a reference to the movie Kung Fu Hustle. So it's probably Japanese themed, which I think is just general Asian. I have not seen this movie, so I don't recognize these guys, or at least I don't think I've seen it. I I first saw them, my brain was thinking they were the two musicians from Shaman King, but I looked and they're completely different. But these guys are necromancers. So I'm going to be kind of bouncing between necromancers and abominations here by culture. So it says produce 3 noise at the start of the game. Each hit dealt in their zone counts as 1 noise instead of any if available. So yeah, they're going to constantly keep producing all this noise, and then they're going to be harder to take out. And there's only chances 1 noise instead of if any is available. So you have to do at least 4 damage to take them out. As necromancers, that means they're going to be sitting on the back just spawning stuff. The only thing that questions, I'm going to imagine these are sort of like the Banshee, where they're special noise tokens. So they're not drawing the zombies to them. They're not going to like keep zombies sitting on their spot. So if they were, that'd be interesting as well. Like zombies would constantly just keep moving to their spot, and they all horde up in like one tile. That could be pretty devastating. All right, then we're gonna look at some guys from some other cultures here. So we have another necromancer. These two next guys are from Melee, which again, I don't remember if that's specifically Malaysian or if Melee is its own thing. So I do apologize for that, but we have the, again, necromancer, and he is Bomo. Now, the book does have a little bit more expanded rules on some of these guys. So he has roll a guy after elimination. 1 to 3, nothing happens. At 4 to 6, he respawns on the starting spawn zone. Any zombies that take, especially necromancers that have ways of staying alive, is pretty devastating. Because like walkers and brutes, they're a pain. They're not too bad, but like necromancers keep coming back. Just gonna be that much harder to win the game. Because then you're like, oh, I finally got, especially like the Defiler necromancer. So if they're being treated as the Defiler necromancers, and replacing them, they're gonna be even harder. Because then they sit back at the regular zone. If you're using these as standard necromancers, where then they move across the board to escape, then they're not so bad. Still a pain, because they're going to be moving spawn zones across the board, or affecting stuff like that, but, yeah, if you're using them as the Defilers, because you could swap out any of these guys as a Defiler Necromancer if you wanted to, just makes them a little bit harder. I don't know if it specifically says that in here. Yeah, it's just Necromancers, just add them corresponding cards in the Necromancer deck. Otherwise, the Necromancer share the same general rules. So just to point this out really quick here. So Necromancers deal 1 damage, take 1 damage, provide 1 AP. Are zombies for the purpose of the game. White death only when Necromancers eliminate, place a random vault weapon. If face down in zone, any survivors may reorganize their inventory for free. So, yeah, so they don't I think the rulebook does specify, the core book does specify how to use these as other zombies. Alright, so then we have a new abomination, also from Melee, which is Toil. So 3 actions, does not inflict wounds, steals equipment instead. Survivor eliminating Toil earns all stolen equipment. So he's just a little tiny guy. Let's get that to the side. Now, I do wish they had more miniatures for some of these guys, because, like, maybe not some of these abominations or necromancers, I can get that, but, like, I wish the daily guys, or the walkers and that had a little bit more. Alright, so for other non-Japanese, non-Chinese cultures, we have 2 more guys to look at. The first one is also from, the first one's also from Hindi. So we have another Hindi character, which is another abomination, who is Asura, the 6-handed demon. So roll a guy, the results is the minimum damage required to eliminate Asura. So, So you could get 1 and get an easy chance to take him out, but you could get 6, and then he's going to be a beast to take out. So imagine an abomination that takes 6 damage, right? He'd be almost impossible to take out. Even at 5, he would be 4 or 5. He would be really hard. But yeah, that definitely makes him an interesting threat on the board, right? Very cool. So yeah, he's a little bit bigger. I don't have. Let's see if I had another survivor sitting around, but I don't. I put all my survivors away. So yeah, well, this miniature is about the same size as a survivor, so you can kind of just see the size. So he's a pretty bit bigger guy. So very cool. All right. Then the next one we have is from, and the last one we have that's from the other cultures. Kind of. I think this one could kind of fit in multiple spots. Another abomination is we have Kumiho. So this is a fox demon. So lots, I think, 9-tail fox type of thing. That could definitely be from other things as well based off it. But they have it listed as the Korean one. Again, when I looked these up, like I did with all the survivors, I typed their names online, tried to find out where they were. And this specific one came up as like a Korean version. That's a multi-tailed fox beast. Very fun. And they have each player's phase is played at random. Ooh, so that could be very interesting. So instead of going in order, you have to fight them at random, so you don't know what's coming up next. Awesome. Alright, so then the next ones we're going to hop into are some that don't really have any. I don't think they're necessarily spotted down to one culture. Sometimes they're Japanese, sometimes they're Chinese. I think they're kind of a mixture of the Asian cultures. First abomination up is the Yeti. So the Yeti could even be like considered an American one as well, like the Abominable Snowman, but this is supposed to be the Asian version. I mean, I don't think I ever call it the Abominable Snowman. I just call it a Yeti over here as well, but so yeah, so definitely cool. So it says, no line of sight to the Yeti unless the survivor stands within range of 0 to 1 of it. So he's elusive and hard to see. So yeah, does it make him more deadly? Yeah, because you can't range him very well. You can't see him coming up. Stuff like that. Then our next abomination is Chimimoryu. So this is a demon. Upon elimination, the Chimimoryu respawns at the nearest necromancer or defiler spawn zone. If none is available, does not respawn. So as long as those zones are available, he's gonna keep coming back. Again, abominations and necromancers that keep coming back all the time are never fun. I mean, they make the game more interesting, but, you know, they're gonna suck when you're struggling because you have to fight this big giant demon multiple times. And like all the abominations have the same rules as standard abominations from the core set, but we can look at what that says just in case. So 1 action, 1 wound, takes 3 to eliminate Cauldron or Dragon Fire. Dragon Place provides 5. Wounds inflicted by the abominations cannot prevented by armor rolls. A damage 3 weapon is required to kill them. Please note, no weapon in White Death has a natural damage 3 value. It can be reached with skills like +1 or special quest rolls. Dragonfire Cauldrons can also kill an abomination. White Death only upon elimination. You get the bullet weapon. And White Death only abominations ignore ramparts, don't need stairs to climb on, or leave battlement walkways. So all of them have that ability. So the Khan has it in the core set, but they just give it to all abominations afterwards. You could kind of argue that here or there if you want with different stuff. The only other thing they don't mention are the siege weapons from, I think it's Green Horde. Might be some in Black Plague as well. Which do sometimes have the ability to do extra damage or kill anything within line of sight. Those obviously supersede any other rules. Cool. Alright, so let's look at a couple of the zombies from China. And then we'll jump into the Japanese ones last. So the first one we're going to look at is an abomination. It is red hair. I want to say I think red hair was Chow Steed. It does not mention it in here, so I might be wrong on that. The first emperor just says. Yeah, we got a flaming horse. I think you buy enough Zombicide games, you're going to be able to have just a full deck of horse abominations, or horse and or unicorn abominations. So I think there's at least one in probably like White Death. Yeah, very, very interesting there. So what's it? It moves 2 zones instead of 1, and trophy. +1 move, +1 zone per move spawns once per game. What does trophy mean? That is a new term. The red hair can only spawn once per game. Okay, so that's definitely that. So, Survivor Eliminated Red Hair earns its miniature set near their dashboard as a trophy. Survivor earns +1 zone per move skill till the end of the game. That is actually cool. I wish we had more things like that. Like, you defeat this, especially for abominations, right? You defeat an abomination, you get an extra little bonus. They kind of did that with the Divine Beast. I think that's a really neat mechanic. So cool. Well, speaking of horse-type characters, we're going to look at another abomination. Just make sure we know which one we're at. We're the Kling. So this is like a magical horse. I think it's kind of supposed to be a homage to the Chromanthus, which is the unicorn, multicolored unicorn that's appeared in a lot of these games. Abomination chooses on the board. All zombies in the zone are eliminated as well. So that's a nice benefit as well. I don't even mind that. Like, make some of these guys either give you a special ability or have some bonus for defeating them, because they're kind of difficult. It does also make the abomination, instead of just let's run away from it, maybe we want to try and figure out how to kill it. So I think that's kind of a cool idea as well. But again, you don't necessarily want every single one to be like that, so I can get that. Another abomination, there's a lot more abominations there are necromancers, is we have this dog-like tiger, dog, lion type beast, the Yang. 4 damage to eliminate, -1 per noise token on the board. Survivors don't count. So you have to actually actively make a noise token to make him weaker. So kind of like different sonic attacks. I wouldn't count the Death Notes or the Banshee putting noise tokens on the board either. So again, those are special ones. But yeah, here's his. It's like a lion of types, or like a dog. You definitely make a full abomination deck of just animals. Especially if you incorporated stuff from modern Zombicide. We get a lot more there. Alright, our last one from China is another abomination. This is the Kyojin, or the Oni, I believe is the other name they would generally call this. I'm not even going to use my scan for this because he's too big. So he has 2 actions. Line of sight can be traced back and forth over buildings. Attacks at range 0 to 1. Survivors have -1 chi at the start of their turn. So he eats their chi as well. But he is a Hyujin. So he's a big, giant red ogre. I almost wish I had got a second box set for this so I could paint a blue one as well. Just so I can have a reference to Dragon Ball Z. So cool. So again, let's compare this to like a human-sized miniature. So yeah, definitely tiny. If we compare it to even just something bigger like the Yeti, who is actually pretty decent size. So very cool. Got a big giant ogre guy. Can obviously just wail on battlements as well. So very cool. Alright, then we're going to hop back into some necromancers for a bit. We got some of the necromancers based on Japanese culture. So we'll go to the first necromancer here. Which is the Yuka Onna. So at the start of each game, Each survivor with the line of sight gets 1 freeze token. Lose 1 action to discard. So yeah, this kind of works very similar to basically having the freeze token, except now it's cast on you instead. That's kind of crazy. As an ability. Just checking Ice Demon. So that's the one we've been kind of looking at for our size comparisons. So at least the upside is, though, if she sees him, you only lose 1 activation. You don't lose your entire turn like the zombies do. So that's at least somewhat nicer. Alright, so then we have another Necromancer. Let's keep making sure we have those. We have Hanya. It says, each miss roll while attacking Hanya's zone inflicts 1 wound to the survivor. Armor rolls are allowed. So if you miss while attacking this guy, you're going to take damage. So you don't want to miss too often. So make sure you have Lucky on, or you're doing high damage, low rolling dice. One die that does 3 damage. Actually, you only need to hit him once with 1 point. So you really only need to have a weapon that only does 1 die. You have a very less chance of it hitting. So cool there. Next, Necromancer. We have the Tengu warriors, which are like bird people. 2 actions per activation. The survivor eliminating the Tengu earns enough AP to reach the next danger level. So this is kind of fun. That way every time you defeat him, you're going to automatically go up. So this is a good and bad thing, right? Because let's say he pops out and you're just getting, let's say you're just getting into orange, and all of a sudden you beat him, all of a sudden now it pumps you all the way up to red. You might have other characters that are still in yellow. Maybe someone that's even still in blue, right? And all of a sudden now you pumped you up to red. Now you're fighting a lot bigger threats. So all that sounds cool. It could be very bad if it hits at the wrong time. All of a sudden you're up way farther. Even if you're going from yellow to orange and other characters haven't gotten, they're just getting into yellow, right? And all of a sudden now you're up to orange already. Like a lot quicker. Because if I even look at the board here, right? Right, if you're just into yellow, like, I just got into yellow, I'm at like 8 or 9, right, and all of a sudden you defeat this guy, and now you're up to 19, and other characters are just now getting into yellow, all of a sudden they only have this 1 extra skill, and they're going to have to go all this extra AP before they get their orange skill, yet you're fighting higher levels of zombies. So yeah, that could definitely be bad as well. It's kind of a boost, double-edged sword there. So yeah, he's like different feathers on there, which is really cool looking. I like his little clogs down there though. His little wooden shoes. And they're usually known for having like long nose and like the face masks. Very, very, very different from the Power Rangers Tengu warriors, which are also bird people. Alright, then we have another Necromancer. I think this is might be our last Necromancer. I might be wrong. We have Kaguya. It says each time she activates, spawn 1 walker in each corruption zone with 1 or more survivors. So yeah, if you're standing in the corruption zone, she's going to spawn a bunch of extra guys. So this should be 1 if you're not using corruption and a Defiler Necromancer. She's not going to really be doing anything. But yeah, so... But if you're playing the missions, you're going to have to use 1. Awesome. So let's hop into some of our abominations. So we're going to start with Hachiman. This is a dangerous warrior. It says, all zombies attack twice whenever they attack. If you defeat them, we get a trophy, 1 free combat action. So only spawns once per game. That's kind of a fun little mechanic, right? The spawns once per game thing. So this guy's kind of grotesque. His guts are hanging out. But he's a big warrior. He's got his bow and arrow on his back. The Hayachiman. Alright, I gotta grab the other holder for these guys. So if the Tengu is kind of annoying, let's look at his, let's call him older brother, an abomination. Is we have the Sojibo. So 2 actions. Line of sight can be traced back and forth over buildings because he's a little bit bigger. Attack range 0 to 1. Can only be eliminated by a survivor owning a Vulk weapon. So this guy has big old staff. Zoom back out a little bit. He's got his pillars on there, but yeah, he's got some wings. I don't know what he's holding. It's some sort of like conch or flute. Which makes me think he should have had almost like a summoning ability, like. But that would have been cool though, like if you had like that could have been a neat box set. Like you had him, like kind of like we had the guys that summon like the rats or the wolves. He'd have been cool if you had like a group of Tengu he could summon. Just as a size comparison again. Very neat. So, not as big as the giant though, but not too shabby either. One of the few guys that has a non-round base also. That's an interesting thing to note. Alright, then we have more abominations. We have Teki Mikazuki, Lightning God. Survivors cannot enter his zone. Survivors immediately resolve 1 free move action, ignoring zombies to exit his zones. Basically, you just can't melee attack him unless you're doing a polearm or a ranged melee, because he's full of electricity. I would have also, again, this is one of those things where I wish they could have fleshed these characters out a little bit more. It's one thing I like about Massive Darkness 2 a little bit better than Zombicide, is they have the roaming monsters. They can flesh them out, give them a little bit more extra abilities. Because this could have been cool. Like, I get the idea he's electrified, so guys can't just be in his zone. But it would have also been neat if you had, like, the extra effect, like, if they enter his zone or he enters their zone, they all take 1 damage. You get, like, electric shock or something. But I get it, right? You can only add so much on each text, otherwise it start becoming too much. But yeah, this, it's his foot in there. I thought he had an extra hand. But yeah, his electric abilities. These are things I think, though, like, for the sake of them, I get their abominations that are supposed to be zombies. I kind of wish they didn't zombify them. Like, he has, like, the rip underneath his chest there. Just leave them as being, like, monstrous creatures. I think that's perfectly fine. Like, even stuff like the fox or the abomination, like, you could be like, hey, the world is being overrun by zombies. All regular people are being turned into zombies. But it'd been cool if the beasts and stuff were like, oh, they look normal, right? They're pissed off giant creatures, you know. Alright, next abomination we have is, Bishamon. So he's, I think, like, a character a lot of people have heard of or know of. My brain immediately goes to Darkstalkers. He's got his, face in his belly. So survivors cannot earn new vault weapons. Bishamon drops 1d6 vault weapons in its zone upon elimination. So this is kind of fun too, right? You can't gain any new ones until you beat him, but once you beat him, he's going to drop potentially up to 6 of them. It's very cool. So he's kind of like hoarding weapons. But yeah, it's a neat idea like that, and the trophy thing, right? It makes him more of a reason to attack him, right? I see this guy, I want to go attack him because he's hoarding my weapons, right? He's going to give me some more vault weapons. Whereas, like, the last guy, you could be like, all he's doing is I just can't be near him. He's not actively hurting me in any way. You have a guy that, they can summon extra things, or they can do damage. Like, that guy's doing damage when you got in his zone. You probably want to deal with him so you don't get trapped somewhere. But yeah, it's just a little bit different. Another abomination, we're getting towards the end of them. We have Akasamaru. So I find this is kind of fun because this is like a Naruto. I want to say Naruto reference as if Naruto can come after this. But this is kind of where they got the name of the black flame that the Uchiha used. So it's kind of neat. Weapons max range is limited to 1. Ooh, interesting. Trophy max +1 max range to all combat spells and ranged weapons. So again, this is fun. It's going to give you a reason to go after them because they're shutting down your abilities and your skills. They're making it so you can't play the game as effectively. So you want to target them. And then on top of that, you're going to get a bonus for defeating them. I think that's a great way to do the abominations. So the eyes all over the wings. Got some like jugs down at the bottom there. Like I almost wish they would have reworked most of them. So either be a super active threat, like summoning extra things like the rats or the wolves, or hindering you in some way so you want to have to go after them, or just give you a trophy, which is cool. Alright, Abomination. We got 2 left. We have Susanoo Low. Again, this is kind of people might know the name sort of from Naruto, being the giant armor that Uchiha use. It says all ranged weapons have an accuracy of 6. So this makes all ranged weapons really hard to use because you have to hit 6. Now, if you for some reason got both of these on the field at the same time, and your ranged weapons you have to roll a 6 to succeed, and you can only hit at 1 range, basically makes ranged weapons completely useless. But yeah, that's kind of fun as well. But he doesn't give you a reward for it, unfortunately. Other than they will drop vault weapons, which in itself, that does definitely make them fairly interesting versus the original ones where you had to go find the vault room. You could just ignore some of these guys for that reason. Alright, then the very last one we have for this set is another abomination, just to make sure. Shakurakori Dogu. So this guy, I'm going to look at his miniature first. Obviously, this giant golden statue. He reminds me of the one from Digimon. Shakuramon. Which is what he's based off of. Yeah, it's a big giant metal robot. So he cannot be eliminated unless it's the only zombie in its zone. Each time a spawn is resolved, spawn a zombie of the same type except Abomination Necromancer in his zone. So he's just going to keep helping produce more. So again, he's not going to give you a benefit, but he's going to actively be causing trouble. So if you have this Abomination come out, you're going to actively want to hunt him down and take him out. Just comparing it to, the base game Khan Abomination, whose only thing is he can climb walls. Alright, so it's definitely a threat for if you're playing the battlements and stuff, but you could more or less just kind of work around it if you wanted to. Even the God Eater one is kind of a pain because it eats one of your chi every turn, so it's less stuff you can use when you're using the chi abilities. But that only, again, one comes into play if you're using the chi abilities. If you aren't using them, or not every survivor is using chi skills, or has one of the characters with a bunch of chi skills on them, they're just using the one extra bonus, you might not really notice that much. I'm not using them every turn. So it kind of has a thing there. You can kind of ignore them. But yeah, some of these guys, this guy's spawning every turn, you're definitely going to want to take him out. So very cool. So that's what we have for Frozen Fortress. For all the abominations. Hopefully check all the survivor stuff. But yeah, really cool. We got some really neat stuff. You can see some of them zombies on there. So there's the Bakuden. There's our electric god. There's our tiger being casting her ice. The pigman. So yeah, so really cool. You guys see some of these guys on there. Plus we got some of the cool survivors up there. There's some of the guards. It's Genghis Khan there. There's Jiraiya. Some of the different archers. Very cool. Yeah, so that's what we have for this. Yes, it's definitely fun. You get a lot more abominations if you want that as an optional thing. I know that one thing that always comes up with these campaigns is why don't we have more walkers? Why don't we have more runners, more brutes? Because abominations don't appear that often in the game. Generally, you have one out at a time unless you want the rule to have more than one. So they're kind of like little mini bosses that come out. So it's fun to make special abilities for them because they're not coming out all the time. And then the same thing is kind of like necromancers. You're not going to generally have a ton of them on the board at the same time unless you're playing with that rule. So having some of those as special, I get they can make a little bit special rules for them. But we kind of saw at the beginning of the video when we were talking about how you spawn all these daily guys. If they're just alternate arts, alternate things for all of them, then granted, yeah, they could add 20, 30 different ones in there, which would be really neat. So instead of, oh, I have a zombie priestess, I have a zombie warlord, I have a zombie this guy, that guy. Those could all be really neat things to do. The Western one did a lot with that. They had like some school, like a school teacher and like a nun, a guy in a coffin. I know like the modern one does that too. They have like a guy, like a football player or guy dressed as Elvis or Santa or something. So you can get some cool stuff like that if you're just playing them as alternate models. That's great. But if you want to start giving them all abilities, all of a sudden having all these abilities will compound more and more and more the more guys you get out to make the game a lot more frustrating to remember. Especially then when you see them on the board, you have to sit there and be like, okay, even if you printed off your own cards or your own little cheat sheets with all the daily spawn stuff, you have to start paying attention to which zombie is which. So then it's like you almost have to put a colored base on the bottom or something to remember, oh, this one does something special. Now, they do have the special types like Terrorcotta, Spectral Walkers, Berserker Walkers, all of them. Anytime they do a special type, including like the base game versus the Orcs, which have Horde abilities, they paint and make them different colors. And that was the idea of that, is so that you could easily tell, oh, that's a different type of zombie. All the regular walkers, all the regular runners and brutes are all gray. All the rest of them have slightly different colors. Even they started making the walkers an off color from the other two, just so you could tell a walker from a runner quick. But yeah, if you start adding them all special abilities, you have to find some way to keep track of it. Otherwise, when you're playing the game, every time you attack a group, every turn, you have to stop and really be like, okay, any of these zombies have abilities that work this turn? No. Okay, now we can move on. And it would just clog the game down. So I do like the idea of having more different ones, but I can kind of see where it could be a problem if you gave them all abilities. Alright, that's what we got first. Check out all the other Zombicide like that stuff if you haven't. Hit me up in the comments. See you guys later. Bye.